The world of heavy metal is a vast, convoluted landscape whose legends are made up with as much fiction as it is reality. Throughout its time, heavy metal has garnered its share of myths, rumors, controversies, urban legends, and stereotypes. Some being more based in reality that have just been a bit misconstrued over time, and some that are so insanely absurd, you question the sanity of the person who said it to you. Well, today we are going to go over and dispel some of the biggest myths in heavy metal. What are some of the things fans have believed for so long that are incorrect? What are some beliefs outsiders have about metal that aren't true? Some of the things I go over here will be really obvious stuff that might be interesting to new people, but older metalheads are going to be tired of hearing. And some of these are specific instances that will shock even longtime fans. And the one I saved for the very end was something I didn't even know until very recently, and it kind of blew my mind and made me question everything I know about metal. So headbang the like button, stage dive on into the subscribe button, and windmill the video to your friends. And if you're a fan of my videos, consider becoming a member of the channel. Memberships start at only 99 cents a month, and every single membership really helps me toward buying Iceland. And now let's shoot down some of the biggest myths in heavy metal. Number 1. Ozzy bites bats. This legend is as old as the dinosaurs, and is one even your grandparents probably believe. Right up there with the legends of Santa delivering presents on Christmas and the Easter Bunny taking a shit on your floor is Ozzy Osbourne biting the heads off of bats at his concerts. This urban legend helped Ozzy's image as the out-of-his-mind Prince of Darkness stick in people's heads even thicker. Fans and terrified parents would spread legends about how at all of his concerts, Ozzy was biting the heads off of bats, birds, dogs, and virgins. And in between meals, he would occasionally find time to sing. But was this ever actually true? Well, sorta, not really. It was never true that Ozzy biting heads off bats was a regular part of his concerts, but the urban legend was an exaggeration of two specific events. In 1981, during a board meeting with some probably coked out executives, Ozzy Osbourne had 2 live doves with him and planned to release them to the meeting as some celebration type of thing. I don't know, it's Ozzy. Ozzy also happened to be blacked out drunk at the time, and was apparently bored, and he bit the heads off the doves. It's debatable if Ozzy even knew what he was doing at the time. Apparently the executives were not happy with his proposal. The other incident being at one of his concerts in 1982. Some weirdo threw a dead bat on stage, as everyone does at concerts. Ozzy apparently thought it was a fake bat, because why would you assume someone just threw a dead animal at you at one of your concerts? And he bit its head off. And while some fans might have thought that that was so metal and awesome and Ozzy is the king, Ozzy himself didn't find it that entertaining. After the concert, he was immediately rushed to a hospital to get a series of rabies shots, which he had to continue getting throughout the rest of the tour. Doesn't sound like something someone would willfully choose to endure just to look cool for a moment on stage. I can see how people would think Ozzy lives on a steady diet of decapitations since these events happened about a year apart from each other, but it was not a regular thing Ozzy would do. Oh, there was also that one time where Ozzy saved all of humanity from going to hell by biting the son of Satan's head off. That was pretty cool. Number 2, Marilyn Manson removed his ribs so he could suck his sausage. I remember everyone believing this one when I was in high school. The urban legend all the cool cigarette-smoking mall goths and freshman metalheads would tell each other is that shock rocker Marilyn Manson had had his own ribs removed so that he would be able to become flexible enough to suck his own wiener? This rumor spread like wildfire as Manson's popularity grew at the same time as the dawn of social media. While it's certainly entertaining that people would think that Manson would suck his own penis, this urban legend was completely made up and never had any hint of authenticity. The only reason it became popular with people is Manson made a point to be such an outrageous and strange freak of human nature and had the body figure of a broken doll that it didn't seem completely crazy for teenagers ditching history class to believe in. I know this one is fun to believe, but the fact is Marilyn Manson did not remove his ribs so that he would be able to taste his own
Johnson. Yes, sir.
Number 3, 2 elderly metalheads snuck out of a nursing home to go to Wacken open air. This story got spread around in 2018 among metalheads and mainstream media even. News sources were reporting a story that 2 elderly men in Germany had escaped from their nursing homes so that they could attend the Wacken open air festival, which happened to be nearby. People everywhere shared the hilarious story of these 2 old badasses breaking away from the system to keep the metal alive. While the story is entertaining and would make for a great road trip movie, The real story isn't quite as awesome. Turns out the real story is two guys, both in their late 50s, had escaped from a mental health institution and ended up in the town of Aachen during the festival. Alcohol and severe mental health issues don't exactly go well together, and eventually the two ended up needing medical help and were taken to one of Aachen's medical tents. That's as far as they got to the actual festival, and both were picked up by police and returned within a few hours of their escape. That being said, I still think we should make an awesome road trip comedy movie out of it anyway. Number 4, grunge killed metal in the 90s. This one I grew up with being forced into my subconscious by the likes of MTV and VH1, and is one many people still believe today. Nowadays I find it particularly annoying as it's such a surface level perspective. The belief is that throughout the 1980s, hair metal and arena rock bands became massive mainstream successes until the dawn of the 1990s, when grunge bands like Nirvana arrived and suddenly became cool, leading to most people forgetting about their cocaine-stained Motley Crue CDs and investing in an overwhelming amount of plaid. Grunge kicked metal out of the spotlight and metal suddenly died until years later. This one isn't true at all for several reasons. I've mentioned before that while it's true grunge started to get the mainstream spotlight in America that metal had enjoyed for a while, many hair metal artists from that time will say how the writing was on the wall long before Nirvana showed up. Hair metal exploded in the early 80s when it was new and exciting and everyone had cocaine. But by the late 80s, it already become tired and stretched past its worth. What was once exciting and new had become generic, corporatized, and bland. The indulgence of the early 80s started to fade as audiences were looking for something more authentic than cheap hairspray and power ballads. Bands stopped selling like they had, and once grunge started growing in popularity, record companies and media jumped on that opportunity, because they're vultures. While that is the case, it's painfully incorrect to say that metal died or even slowed down in the 90s. The underground scenes of thrash, death, black, grind, progressive, groove, industrial, alternative, and plenty more were quickly building strong followings and changing the metal scene. It may not have been as mainstream and accessible as glam, but metal was absolutely thriving. Even in the mainstream throughout the 90s, bands like Rammstein, Metallica, Rage Against the Machine, Pantera,
he said it! He said it!
Marilyn Manson, Ministry, and so many more were playing sold-out shows. Metal was very much alive and thriving in the 1990s, you just had to know where to look for it. Number 5, Metallica sued Napster because they're greedy assholes. Most people know the story that in the year 2000, massive mainstream successes Metallica filed a lawsuit against an internet site called Napster. Napster was essentially the first music sharing service online that was completely free, meaning anyone could download an artist's music without the artist getting a penny. At the time, most people viewed this as a bunch of millionaire rock star assholes angry at people who couldn't afford to pay for CDs, listening to their songs, taking precious small funds away from out-of-touch rock stars who just wanted to buy new private jets.
Then why don't you go and sue Napster, you little Danish twat?
Indeed, it was the cool thing to hate on Metallica, and specifically their yard gnome of a drummer Lars Ulrich for a long time. But look at what's happened just some 20 years later. Every song you could possibly want to hear throughout modern history is at the touch of your fingertips. And yet everyone knows that companies like Spotify don't pay artists jack shit.
That we're going to be on Spotify, of course, you know, the platform where they rob musicians who are mostly brain dead drug addicts. So
ask any band with even a decent following and they'll say how the money they make from streaming platforms is microscopic. At the time, Metallica stated they weren't concerned about themselves but what effect this would have on future artists. And now here we are in a time where your band can get 1 million plays on Spotify, and if you're lucky, maybe you'll get paid enough to buy a cheeseburger to split for the whole band. Looking back, I don't think it's really fair to say that Metallica's lawsuit was strictly because Lars Ulrich needed an airplane. Number 6, metal musicians are rich. If you believe this one, then you have seriously not been paying attention to the music industry for the last few years. Many people remember a time not that long ago where a band releasing an album and going on tour meant they were doing pretty well financially. Everyone knows exactly what to picture when you say the word rock star. A wealthy egotist that makes lots of money by traveling the world, performing to huge audiences that worship them, and partying 24/7. Well, unfortunately, in most cases nowadays, this is far from the truth. Currently in 2023, with the state of the music industry as a whole, most artists you see on tour barely make any money at all. Most of the metal musicians you listen to most likely have other normal jobs when they're not on tour or are just barely getting by. Touring is expensive, especially with the current economy driving the price of everything up and Ticketmaster's evil monopoly grip on the music industry. As I said earlier, it's common knowledge streaming services like Spotify don't pay artists diddly squat. 99% of the metal bands you listen to are nowhere near close to rich. Most of them, even in huge bands, are probably getting by pretty alright at best. The days of a metal band releasing an album and going on tour to make enough money to live above middle class is practically non-existent at this point. Just because you see someone on stage or in a music video or on your social media feed doesn't mean they're living super comfortably. In fact, in some cases, you might be making more money than they are. Number 7. Metal music is just screaming.
Loud noises!
Even through YouTube, I can hear the audible groan from all the veteran metalheads who have heard this be addressed more times than Dave Mustaine has bitched about Metallica. Yet to this day, normies, vanillas, and just casual people still often think that metal vocals are just screaming that takes no talent.
Oh, my sweet summer child.
If it's talentless, angry noise anyone can do, then why are most people unable to do it when asked? The truth is, metal music encompasses a wide array of vocal styles. Pretty much every vocal style imaginable can be found in some type of metal music, whether it's operatic, punk screaming, classically trained, falsettos, baritone, rap, and yes, false chord gutturals, and high-pitched fry screams. None of which are ever done well by someone going up to a microphone with no idea of what the fuck they're doing. Sure, some bands can get away with a singer just having a tantrum and making dark sounds, but as for my experience as a death metal vocalist, I spent about a year practicing by myself before feeling confident enough to try with a band. I took lessons and learned how to develop it right, and even then at first it was weird and uncomfortable and sounded like shit. Even when I first joined a band, my vocals were alright, but that was after a lot of constant work and I wasn't anywhere near the skill level I'm at right now. So it's not just screaming angry into a microphone. It takes years of constant practice and learning how to control the air in your body and the muscles from your face to your throat to your chest, and plenty of performing live in front of people before feeling comfortable with it. Don't believe me? Then go karaoke a Bloodbath song and see how you do. Number 8. Heavy metal is for white people. This one has been a persistent stereotype when it comes to the metal world. Many outsiders upon a surface level glance will ignorantly say that it's only white people that listen to metal, or metal concerts are just angry white dudes, or something equally prejudiced. People that think this mainly do so just because metal isn't rap and isn't what most people gravitate to, at least in America. Even many metalheads will say the scene still has a problem with racism and Nazis. Now, I won't say stupid situations like that never happen in the metal world, and any such instances are disgusting and should be called out. But I would argue the extent of racism in metal today is grossly exaggerated and overlooks how multicultural and diverse the metal world really is. In fact, I think heavy metal is one of the best examples of genuine diversity out there. Metal is a genre that fully allows artists to incorporate their cultures and influence into their music while still being considered fully fucking metal. Bloodywood from India is blowing up right now, incorporating their native language and instruments into their metal. Mexico has a whole shitload of awesome extreme bands, and many countries in Africa have growing metal scenes of their own. The main demographic at a concert depends entirely on where it's located. Countries like Brazil, Indonesia, Japan, and Mexico have thriving metal scenes, and I doubt you'd find a majority of white people at those shows. When I go to concerts in Los Angeles, I see all types of people, from white people, Latin, Asian, Black, Pacific Islander, and everything in between. And it's been the same for the majority of festivals I've been to. Do a lot of white people listen to metal? Yeah. But I'd argue that a lot of all people listen to metal. Metalheads the majority of the time are welcoming people who are often interested in other cultures. More than that, metal has also always had a sort of medieval brotherhood sense to it, where fans want you to have as much fun as they're having. So metal is for everyone. Don't be afraid to go to a show and make friends, and if someone at a metal show is genuinely racist, they are a small minority and don't represent the majority of the metal people, so fuck them, kick them in the dick. Number 9. Metal concerts are dangerous. Now, this perception isn't entirely false. A lot of people think that metal concerts are just giant slugfests where barbarians show their love of music by punching each other's teeth out. And depending on the band, this can definitely happen, but it depends entirely on what concert you're at and where you are. For the most part, most metal shows you go to, whether at a small club, a theater, or outdoor arena, you're probably going to be totally fine if you're around the edges of the crowd and toward the back. And if your venue has seats, then that's clearly a safe zone. The places where you're more likely to get injured are the mosh pit and the very front of the crowd. For the front, you'll definitely get squished and get some elbows in your back and your hair caught on people's battle vests and facial piercings. For the pit, depending on how intense it is, you could definitely get some bruises and lumps on your body if you get hit too hard. But usually that's about the extent of it, and I never see pits where people are just straight up fighting each other. However, that's not to downplay the risk involved that comes with being in a pit. This is the place where chances of getting a serious injury are at their highest. Like me when I was moshing at an Anthrax show 2 years ago and fell and broke my leg. Most of the time, probably not gonna happen, but can definitely still happen. But if you want to stay away from all that and just safely enjoy the show, you're most likely going to be totally safe if you're not in the pit or the very front. Unless you take a sip of your beer and have a crowd surfer land on your head. That can happen too. Number 10, metalheads are scary. Booga 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 booga. Many normal people on the outside of the metal hemisphere often have the impression that metalheads are scary, dangerous freaks who bask in all things dark and death and eat babies. I wonder what would have given them that impression. While it's true metalheads tend to love the intense imagery of gore, murder, war, demons, violence, and the occult, plus we are pretty intense creatures, the truth is metalheads tend to look far scarier than they actually are. Speaking as a metalhead, I can tell you that for a lot of us deep down, we are ridiculously silly animals who are eager to act outrageous and probably embarrass ourselves. On the outside, we may look like we live in a cave, but let a metalhead loose in a field with some alcohol and friends and music, and they'll quickly be smashed out of their minds, belting out a Backstreet Boys song while wearing a pink animal costume. Metalheads are actually far more likely to have a completely ridiculous time wearing crazy costumes, making up drinking games, and singing 90s pop songs all night than most other music fans. We may seem intimidating to normies at first, but metalheads for the most part will be the first to laugh at themselves and make comedy out of any situation. And no matter how scary and intimidating metalhead may look, put a little puppy or a kitten in front of them and they will straight up turn into a little girl with excitement. And now everyone, for the final one in this video that genuinely blew my mind when I learned it. Number 11, Ronnie James Dio started the devil horns in heavy metal. Everyone knows the hand gesture of the devil horns, once only for metal fans but has since been gentrified into being used by people everywhere for everything, yet it's still the standard symbol of the metal genre. If you asked most metal people, including me, where this symbol came from, we would have told you about how Ronnie James Dio started using the symbol when he was in Black Sabbath, as an old tradition he picked up from his grandmother as a way to guard from or give the evil eye to someone.
And I would always see my grandmother when I was a little kid, you know, with her holding my hand and walking down the street. She would see someone and go, "What's that?" And eventually learned that it was called the Maloik. Someone was giving us the evil eye, so she's giving it protection against the evil eye. Or you can give someone the evil eye too.
This story is inscribed within every metal fan's DNA, but as it turns out, it may not have been what really happened. Just very recently, Black Sabbath bass player Geezer Butler stated in an interview that he has photos of him using this symbol back in 1968, well before Dio had joined the band. According to Geezer, when Dio joined the band, fans kept doing Ozzy's peace sign he'd become synonymous with, and Dio wanted something to stand out. Apparently, Dio asked Geezer about the hand symbol after seeing him do it, and asked if he could use it. From there, Dio started doing it all the time for every song, and the hand gesture quickly became recognized with him. As for the symbol itself, Geezer Butler says he started doing it because Aleister Crowley was known for it, who Geezer was a big fan of. Not only that, but another band was already using the symbol as their own. A cult rock band, Coven, from 1969 are clearly seen using it on the cover of their first album, and the bands and fans would all hold up the symbol during their concert, as seen here. Singer Jinx Dawson, who grew up around the occult, would see the symbol used with her witch family and started using it with her band as a sort of honor and welcoming, and it was known as being their thing at the time. So it is fair to say that Dio certainly made the devil horns popular within metal, being the singer for such a huge band, but there's clear evidence that poke major holes in the story we've all been led to believe. And I gotta say, this one completely shattered my worldview and broke my concept of reality. Dio didn't start the devil horns. He didn't get them from his grandmother. Is black really white? Is up really down? Are birds even real? Everything I believe is a lie. And there you have it, 11 of the most popular myths and legends within the metal world that aren't exactly true. Hopefully you can all handle the reality bending information in this video. You might want to seek out a therapist or get one of those spinning things from Inception to see if you're still in reality. But did you already know of any of these, or are there other myths, rumors, and legends around heavy metal that you know of? Let me know in the comments below. For more from me, check out my band Dark Insanity on Instagram and here on the channel. We're getting ready to record soon, and we're going to be playing December 8th at the Rainbow in Los Angeles, and we'll be playing the Tulminator Festival next year in Slovenia. If you like this video, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing, and maybe even becoming a member of the channel. And shout out to my Rockstar members, Scars of Oblivion and Charles Florio. Big thank you to those guys for helping out the channel. Check out my other channel, Film Rebel, where I talk about today's films and entertainment if you're into that kind of thing. Anyway, that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video.